All right, good afternoon, everyone. I want to call the meeting of the Reinvestment Workforce Committee of the Social Equity Council to order at 2:01 p.m. Do a quick roll call. Corey Betts,
Present.
Rick Homer, Avery Gaddis,
Here.
Sabira Gordon, Andrea Hawkins,
Present.
Michael Jefferson,
Here.
Jala Naeem, present, Paul Robertson,
Present.
Kelly Malarius, Kevin Walton.
Present.
Okay, that is the full committee. So seems like we've got quorum. First item on the agenda is the approval of our August 16th, 2023 minutes. Do I have a motion for approval?
Move.
I have a second.
Second.
I see that Paul Robertson has joined us on the call and seconded the motion. Any discussion on the minutes? And none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
Any abstain? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is an introduction to our new reinvestment program manager. So I will hand it over to Ginny Ray to introduce us.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, everyone. I am thrilled and excited to introduce to you the two newest members of the Office of Social Equity Council staff. The first is Vera Lembrick. Vera, I mentioned to you guys in my report in August, joins us from an extensive banking background and also a background in community development and reinvestment. I'm going to let her just say hello and maybe say 2 words about herself. More than 2 words, but.
Well, Jenny, you pretty much said it all. I am Vera, and I joined you most recently as a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant with a major financial company in the area, and retiring after 37 years with another financial entity in the area. So with a lot of community service, as Jenny said, and community reinvestment, small business reinvestment as well. So I'm happy to join your team and proud to be a part of the team.
Thank you, Vera.
Welcome.
I also want to introduce Arlene Galindo Jimenez. Arlene joined us on Monday as well. Arlene is our outreach program manager, and she comes to us with an extensive media buying, media background. And it's only been in Connecticut a couple of years, but has done some really amazing things with the American Red Cross. And Arlene, I'll let you say more about yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here. Nice to meet you. And like she said, I do come with a background of media. I've worked in disadvantaged communities and communities, Latino communities, African American communities, and urban Native communities for over 20 years in the Central Valley of California. And for the last 2 years, I have been working throughout the state of Connecticut in several communities and working to really bring in information and attention to these communities about the American Red Cross. So I'm happy to be here now.
Thank you.
Awesome. Welcome.
Thank you.
And then we will move on to agenda item 5. Ginny Ray, do you want to take that as well?
Yep. So I've been participating with the Office of Workforce Strategy in the interviewing process for a workforce development program manager. We had a couple of weeks of interviews. We interviewed some pretty interesting folks. We are going to meet early next week to make the final decision on who we would like to make the offer to. So we expect that person to be able to join us most immediately, or at least within the next 2 weeks after the offer and the final hiring process is completed. So we're thrilled. I'm looking forward to that person coming on board as well.
Excellent. Anyone on the council committee have questions for the executive director around hiring? Great, well, we're looking forward to meeting the new person coming on for workforce. And again, Vera and Arlene, good to have you guys. Welcome to the team.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on, item number 6. So reinvestment and workforce updates. Last meeting, we had put a couple of takeaways for the executive director to go check out on. So I'll just kind of recap those now and turn it over to the executive director to provide an update on those. The first was clarity on funds and the different accounts that they sit in and what they can and can't be used for. Second was sort of a timeline for when we want to have, when we expect to have outreach conversations wrapped up by results. We had made the request to have those results in by the first week of October. So I'd like an update on where we stand on that. And then, what we would like the timeline to be for this committee to start working on reinvestment strategy and opportunities for 2024. So that was the kind of 3 key takeaways from our last meeting. And with that, I will turn it over to Director Clay.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So immediately after the last reinvestment committee, I reached out to the Office of Policy and Management and asked those questions that the council was interested in hearing. So the response that I got back from OPM is they are asking for the council to submit a plan. And once we submit our plan, they will work to ensure that the funds are available to the SEC to draw down as needed. And according to the email pursuant to Section 88 of Public Act 23-204, any funds unexpended in the Social Equity Innovation account at the end of fiscal year 24 will be transferred to the Social Equity Innovation Fund for use by the council. And they want us to be mindful that, these are special funds. This is not something that's going to be available to the council or to the community on an annual basis. So again, they wanted to remind us as we're putting our plan together to be mindful that these are kind of a one-time large sum of money, and we should not set the expectation that these funds, this level of funding will be available going forward. They also encourage us to evaluate existing programs so that we can get the biggest bang for our buck in the reinvestment area, which we are already doing. We've been engaging in that for almost a year now, looking at programs that are already in existence so we don't reinvent the wheel. One of our members, our council member and designee from the Office of Policy and Management, reported to us at our council meeting that there was about $34 million in the account. And those funds will not be available to us until July 1st of 2024. So I worked with my staff in looking at how we get ourselves ready for those funds and how we look to spend them. So we've come up with sort of a timeline. And I think I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen just so everybody can see it. And I will be sending this out.
Jerry, could I
Sorry,
just
sorry.
ask you to pause for a second before we
Yeah.
jump into timeline? I believe there's some questions around the fund. So I'd
Sure,
like to
sure.
acknowledge Councilman Jefferson.
Yeah. Through you, Madam Chair, and thank you for recognizing. Madam Executive Director, can you just go back? You said a couple of things that went right over my head, and I just need some clarity. Now, you mentioned the funds being transferred into the social equity, from the social equity innovation account to the fund of the same name. Which funds are we talking about?
$34 million, the conversion fees, licensing fees, the
Right.
large.
So that's the $34 million. So what do you, I don't understand why those funds will not be available to us for 23-24. That's in the legislation. It's for our exclusive use for this coming year. So how is that not being available to us? Once it transfers to the fund, we lose control of the money. Explain to me how it will no longer be for our exclusive use.
Councilman Jefferson, but just if I may, I think what you're asking is just to clarify the confusion around, I think when Director Clay says these are one-time funds will not be available again, I think what OPM is saying is that the 34 million was raised through fees collected from licensing and other pieces made. That does not mean that we will have an additional 34 million the next year if they are spent. So
Madam Chair, I understand that perfectly. That is,
and
that's
then the second piece,
it's the
the second
piece
piece,
you were talking about. What funds will be available for reinvestment for 23, 24? That's part one of my question. What are we talking about? Because the legislature gave us 25 million. That amount, it seems, have raised to 36 million. What are we talking about? What funds will be available for reinvestment for 23, 24? That's what we're concerned about. I need to know that.
Director Clay, do you want to clarify that?
So the large pot of money that we got from the conversion fees is not available to us in fiscal year, right now in fiscal year 24 to go to spend. We will not have access to that fund until July 1st of 2024.
Stop right there. So what do we have access to?
At this point right now, we don't have access to anything other than whatever is left over in our current budget. So we were
Well-
not allocated in our budget much funds for reinvestment for this year.
Right, they were talking about, they were estimating the revenue generated by the taxes at 5.2 the last time, and that would cover salaries and whatever left over for reinvestment in workforce. But
Correct.
the legislature, right? So, but the legislature gave us 25 million. I don't understand, and did not transfer the money that 25 million that could have been transferred at the end of 23 fiscal year into the Social Equity Innovation Fund from the account. They left it in the account for our exclusive use. Now I'm hearing, oh, we can't touch it until it gets transferred into the fund.
Correct. It's not, it is in an account. It is not in the fund yet. When it goes to the fund, it is then available for our use. In the account, it is not available to us until July 1st.
Yeah, I need some more clarification on that. That was just not my understanding through the legislature. So we don't have any money to reinvest in our communities in 23 and 24. We gotta wait for 24, the beginning of the fiscal year for 24, they reinvest in our communities. We don't have a dime except what's left over. And this was a
Correct.
pilot program.
Correct.
We only got $1 million for the 6 communities. Why don't we have more money available to us? And why are we waiting to the end of the fiscal year of 23 where our money gets transferred into a fund where we lose exclusive rights over that money and OPM gets those rights to use our money as they see fit? Madam Chair, I understand you're shaking your head, but this does make absolutely zero sense to me.
Councilman Jefferson, I just want clarity. You're bringing up the point that OPM gets control over those funds. My understanding is it goes from the account, which is currently into the fund, and the fund, I'm quoting Director Clay, this is what she said in the beginning of this meeting, it is exclusively to be spent by the Social Equity Council. Director Clay, is that correct?
That is my
So
understanding.
if those dollars go into the fund, OPM cannot control what happens with them.
Well, then I want that, and we should get that in writing from OPM, because we don't want our money being spent on the creation of new jobs or placed in a general fund somewhere for everyone to dip into when it was delegated to our exclusive use. That came from the legislature. That's in the governor's budget.
Councilman
clear.
Jefferson, could you clarify where your concern of it being spent elsewhere is coming from, just so we can kind of trace that
Well,
back?
quite frankly, I just don't trust what I've been hearing from OPM. It's just been a lot of ambiguity. I don't know what they're saying. I just need something in writing that that's consistent with the legislation that was just passed this year by the General Assembly concerning that it was 25 million, Madam Chair, when we started out, and that was left for our exclusive use. Appropriations gave us that money. That was absolutely clear. And then they said this, Madam Chair, that you cannot the money will not be transferred from the SEC innovation account, and it was supposed to be. They stopped it and said, no, it stays in the account, doesn't get transferred until the end of the fiscal year 24. I mean, 24. That's when it gets transferred. So they delayed it by a year.
Yep.
Madam Executive Director, is that, am I accurate?
You are accurate. We don't
Yeah.
have access, well, we don't have access to the funds until July 1st.
And that's what's confused me, Madam Chair, because I thought we had access, because what do we have to give? First of all, we haven't even funded the smaller DIAs. We haven't. We ran a pilot program for the 6 DIAs, as you know, giving them $1 million each. We have not even funded the smaller DIAs, and the $1 million that we gave the larger DIA, that's just, quite frankly, not enough.
Yeah.
That's just not enough. So we have to wait, I'm hearing, until the end of fiscal year 24 or the beginning of 25 to receive more money to give to the disproportionately impacted areas, including the smaller DIAs. It just doesn't make sense to me, Madam Chair. And I'm not trying to monopolize this conversation, but we need clarity as to where that money is coming from. These DIAs need the money. We just need that money.
Thank you. So Councilman Jefferson, I hear you loud and clear. And I also want to acknowledge, I see the hands raised by Councilman Gordon and Councilman Pelka. Before I call on them, to Director Clay, and I would ask, since we have Councilman Robertson and Councilman Pelka on the call, for this council, I would like to request that the three of you please work together to get us from OPM. Again, this is what we requested last time, and I'm still not seeing it. We're getting not that, our questions are not being answered from OPM. I would like to understand what is the designation for the two separate, the count versus the fund. What can be spent and for what uses in the account, and what can be spent and for what uses in the fund. And at what point does money transfer over and why? I think there's still a lot of, to Councilman Jefferson's point, I still don't have clarity on that. It's what I requested clarity on behalf of this committee last meeting. Director Clay indicated that she asked those questions and did not receive answers. The answer she received was OPM requesting us to submit a plan. Again, we cannot create a plan until we know what we have to work with and what it can be used for. And I do not have that understanding. So I would request that three of you please work together to get us those answers and clarity so we can move on into the next steps of this. Thank you. And then I'd like to acknowledge Councilwoman Gordon first, and then Councilman Pelko.
Hi, everyone. So I guess following up on what Councilman Jefferson was asking, I think I would like to know where was there a misstep that somehow is having us be an entire year without access to resources?
That is not true. That is not accurate. So
Okay.
We need to get you the information. I joined this meeting like 2 minutes ago, and I'm just trying to be helpful. That is not the case.
Okay.
The funds that are in the social equity and innovation account for fiscal 2024, those funds are there and may be drawn down. The Social Equity Council has been asked to submit a plan for how it intends to use the funds that are in the Social Equity and Innovation Fund account. OPM indicated it would, as a courtesy, that proposal should be shared with the legislature. But OPM will work with the Social Equity Council to draw down the funds that are currently in the Social Equity and Innovation Fund, Social Equity Innovation account. What you're hearing about for 2025 and future years, that is a Social Equity and Innovation Fund into which the funds will roll over at the end of the current fiscal year. So that means the funds that are currently there may be drawn down once a plan is proposed for the current fiscal year. And at the end of the current fiscal year, those funds will automatically roll over into a fund where they will remain for future drawn down. I agree that this needs to be done in writing. I don't know this impression OPM hasn't provided it. The question came in, the executive director and OPM provided it. I provided the last meeting, and we are happy to provide greater clarity. So the executive director, maybe it makes sense for her to send the questions over, and we'll be happy to answer them. To clarify.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Apologies, and thank you, Councilman Palka, for that clarity. Director
I'm sorry
Clay,
to go out of order. It seemed like it was building and with each person who spoke, and I just really felt for the
I understand, and I do want to go
order.
back to, Councilman Gordon's question, but to that point, for clarification purposes, Director Clay, what was the question that you asked him, and what was the response you got? Can you please either share that email chain with the committee so that we can all be on the same page? You're on mute, sorry.
Yeah, I will go back and get that email. I also will share an email that I sent in the discussion that I had with Chairman Robertson, and we talked about getting even more clarity from OPM, and he was going to work with OPM to get some more answers and maybe just a little bit deeper information, so that those conversations are and we will have those so we can get even more clarity. And I think it is important for us to have a meeting. We did request a meeting. We have not had that meeting yet. Schedules have not allowed us to kind of get together on a Teams call or a Zoom call, but we'll be following.
I would just like it in writing. I think it's in writing. It has been put in writing. I don't need it to be a meeting because, quite frankly, we're not going to be there, and then it's going to go back to he said, she said. So whatever we can get in writing, I think, to help clarify and solidify the solution. So I know they responded to the set of questions that you sent over to them. So I think if you could forward and share that email with this committee and council, that would be great. And then we can send back to yourself, Chairman Robertson, and Councilman Palka, if we have additional questions that we feel like aren't being clarified on the communications. We'll send those over to you all, and you can get those back in writing. But let's just get that done. It shouldn't take too long. I think the answers are there. I think the clarity is there. Councilman Palka, I appreciate you jumping in. I know it was out of order, but I think we needed that clarity a little bit. With that, I'd like to hand it back to Councilman Boyd.
Thank you, Chairwoman. So I guess these questions are, I guess I have one question that's probably, Councilman Palka, you have the answer to, and then Executive Director Clay, you would probably have the answer to the next question. The first one is, so what is the dollar amount sitting in the social, what is sitting there right now that we are awaiting a plan for? Do we know what that dollar amount is at this moment?
Approximately $35 million.
Okay. Executive Director Clay, what is standing between this moment and a plan that can be submitted to OPM? Is it that this reinvestment group needs to, what's standing between we've been hearing about this plan since October of, what was this? Not last year, maybe 21, or we've been hearing about the need for a plan to get the money for well over a year. It was a budget issue. We couldn't vote on the budget, so we didn't have the money because we didn't have a plan. I feel like we are way past, is it that we need to sketch out what we need? Ajala and I put together the reinvestment plan in a week to be able to distribute the $6 billion that we had to put out. What's the holdup there from the SEC side? Is it that us as the council needs to create the plan? Is it the SEC team that needs to create the plan? It's been way too long that we've been talking about this. And I need to know what are the next steps between today and 30 days out that's going to end up with a plan that we can start getting this money into the communities. Because as to Councilman Jefferson's point, we know what needs to be done. If we just need to write it down, we can do that. But I'm not understanding why this back and forth has been happening for well over a year. We knew this was coming, and to date, 2023, September, Councilman Pelka is telling us the same thing he told us a year and a half ago about having access to these resources.
So we did a plan. We submitted that plan, then we did a revised plan. And we used that revised plan for the pilot program that we put out this summer. And then the council wanted to hear from the community on adding to the first plan that we did. We wanted to hear directly from the community on what their thoughts were as far as spending these reinvestment dollars. So that's where the community conversations are coming in. At this point, we are still waiting on the Attorney General's office to approve the contracts for those trusted messengers to conduct those community conversations. In the meantime, we put together a community survey that is being distributed, got distributed starting on September 30th, all around as many venues as we can. And now with our outreach program manager, she is going to be pushing the survey, which will end December 1st. Once the community conversations were had, we were using that information and the survey information to add to the plan that we already have in place, to tweak that plan, to add the comments from the community.
So maybe that should have been the plan 6 months ago. I think we have to just figure out how to abandon that. Like, we approved as the chair, the outreach committee approved these community messengers back in April or May, or even before that, because we had a really compressed timeline to get these done in the month of July. We're at the end of September and we have gotten no community conversations had so far. So maybe we need to put this back to the council to say, are you okay with us just rolling with the original plan? Because whoever keeps, like, we're dragging our feet. Like, we haven't had one community conversation happen yet. We have no, like, we don't know when's going to happen in 2 weeks or 30 days. I'm not sure, Chairwoman, what we do here, but we have to think about the order of operations and what we're going to move to get the money out.
I appreciate you calling that out. I just want to pause. I think there's two separate tracks of comments here. Your first initial question to the director of play was around sort of, I think at the end of the day, there is a disconnect. I think between what director play, what you believe we have to work with and what I'm hearing from OPM. So again, please have that clarified. Let's get on the same page on the dollars, when and how and where we can spend them, because we've been going in circles on this for quite some time. The second piece of this is, why is this contract still sitting with the Attorney General's office? I cannot understand that. So can someone please explain to me how it's been 3 months and these contracts can't get approved?
So I'll let Attorney Material who's been handling the contracts. I'll actually let them.
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, how things happen in the order. The contract, before we created this program, we had to get the Attorney General office to first approve a template for the contract that we could use. We did that before June, and then we had to pause the review of those templates because the fiscal year was coming to an end and the grant program was priority. So we shifted the work to the grant program, which has to be approved first. Now, after the grant program was approved, now please keep in mind that approval of a contract at the AG's office takes normally between 2 to 3 weeks. So for the grant program, we had about 6, I believe. So after that was approved, we came back to the community conversation. And then we work on that. And afterwards, because of the nature of the facilitators, we had to get OPM approval, and which is what we received graciously from OPM. And now that we got all of that, the contract went back. We got the parties to execute it. By parties, I mean the executive director and the facilitators. And now, after getting those contracts executed, we now send it to the appropriate Assistant Attorney General, who will do a final review before they sign it. And that too will take 2 to 3 weeks. The second week will be next week, which is when we will follow up to find out whether it gets approved or not. And if it doesn't get approved, then we'll ask questions as to why it didn't get approved. So that's sort of how the process went and what delays that. Now, in the middle of that, there was also the loan program, which also we had to get out for the industry. So we work in the order of those priorities, which is why
So
it may feel that. Yes, ma'am.
I just want clarification here. Why can't we have, I mean, what was needed to review these? Why couldn't we have just sent them at the same time as the contracts for the grant program and the loan program? Like, it sounds to me, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like the staff made the decision to put these on the side, tackle the other two programs first, and pick them back up in July.
No, it wasn't.
Right, that is not the case.
That's not the case. It wasn't a staff decision to do that. It was things were changing about this program a lot. For example, the facilitator program has changed based on how many we're getting. So every time something changes with regard to any of these programs, it affects the contract, and we had to go back to it to make those adjustments. And that's what usually causes the delay. And because these contracts are kind of new, I mean, the programs are kind of new in the state, and the cannabis aspects of it, there's extra scrutiny at the AG's office to make sure that we are operating fully within the frame of the law.
I
And
mean,
that's
these are
what
listing,
caused.
we're asking people, but it's research. I mean, I don't know what could be illegal about conducting research. We're not selling, we're not providing something. We're literally just asking people. So the amount of time it's taking, I mean, this is holding us back. We've been talking about needing input and feedback from the community for a year now. And I was not aware that there were this many delays and changes happening in terms of being, every time someone changed something, it needed to go back and all of that. I've looked at Councilwoman Gordon, who chairs our outreach committee I don't know if she was aware or not, but this is, I mean, we are almost in October. We haven't even started the community conversations. And now we're in the second year of saying we need to make decisions on reinvestment with $35 million now without having heard from the community. I am not comfortable with that.
I totally understand, Madam Chair, and I assure you that this contract will be executed in moments. By the end of next week, I'm anticipating it will be executed and the program will start. Every other work has been completed. All that's needed is the signature of the AG. We process them into the system. They're ready to go. They're just standing by. Nothing else will be delayed after we get the approval from the AG's office.
The other thing I want you to take into consideration is that every. Sorry.
No, I apologize. Councilman Walton, I see your hand up. I'm going to let Ginny Ray finish and then I will call on you.
All of the work that we are doing, it's not like we have templates that we can use and we just need to amend them. All of our templates, all of our contracts are brand new contracts to the Attorney General and for programs. So sometimes the delay comes in. One office doesn't agree with another, and it's something brand new, it's something that needs research. So we work on the loan program, the community conversation contract, and the reinvestment contract all at the same time. They were being done simultaneously and moved along as quickly as we could move them along to the Attorney General, to the Office of Policy Management, to the Department of Economic and Community Development. So it's not just, one approval. There's several agencies that have to approve the things that we're doing, and everything we're doing is brand new.
I appreciate that insight, and I have two asks. One, when we start figuring out timelines for deliverables, let's make sure we are baking that in, because that is not something that I don't want to speak for the full council, but I did not understand or know of as we were going to this. The second ask I have.
Sometimes we don't know either. Sometimes we're not aware of the length of time.
So I think at this point, it's safe to say we've got enough experience between all the different programs and everything we've done over the last 2 years to be able to anticipate some of this, right? So moving forward, let's make sure we can bake that in. The second ask is, once the Attorney General approves the community conversation contracts, please notify the council along with a update on when we think these conversations will be launched. I would like to see those organizations try to get us information within 4 to 6, I mean, 4 weeks ideally, but I think pushing them for 4 to 6 weeks, we need this information before the review. Councilman Walton, apologies for the delay, but floor is yours.
Yeah, no worry. Thank you, Madam Chair. So first, I still don't personally don't know where we are with all of this, and I've heard all of the back and forth. But the timeline for me, because I think we had a little bit of issue with, we thought we were going to be in a crunch for the summer. So I guess my question becomes, what happens if there's these continued delays, especially with the contracts being executed, conversations don't take place, and then we come to the end of the fiscal year and we're in this crunch for funds? So what happens to funds, and what's the timeline that the funds have to be out the door?
I think that has to be clarified when we have our discussions. That'll be another one of the questions we ask, and we can get that information in writing.
So we're not sure what happens. We don't know when the funds have to be out the door. I guess that's the question. And so it's two questions: when do they have to be spent, and what happens if it's not all out the door by the end of the fiscal year? Because it gets the feeling that it's being someone wants the clock to run out.
These are also non-lapsing funds, but Mark has the same way, so probably wants to better.
Thanks. Yep. Councilman Palka?
Yeah, I'm happy to provide that clarity. Any funds that are unexpended in the social equity and innovation account at the end of the current fiscal year, June 30th, 2024, will be transferred to the Social Equity and Innovation Fund for use by the Commission to support its reinvestment funds. So any unexpended funds in the account at the end of the current fiscal year will be transferred to the fund.
Thank you for that clarification. So I interpret that as no one else is touching our money. If we don't spend it by the end of the fiscal year, it will go in the fund where we can still have a plan to reinvest those dollars. I'm going to call on Councilman Jefferson, since he's a council member first, and then I'll call on Councilman Shirley. I believe he just joined the call.
Yeah, that's not my interpretation, through you, Madam Chair. That's not my interpretation. If it rolls over to the fund, it's no longer for our exclusive use. We can apply for funds once it rolls over, but it's not for our exclusive use. Now it's for our exclusive use. That's my interpretation. So we need to spend those funds now. That's just the bottom line as far as I'm concerned. And Councilwoman Gordon raised something very interesting. She basically said we already have the plan in place. And you're right, Madam Chair. I have to agree with you that I don't want to expend those funds until we hear back from the community. But we all have a sense of what the community needs are. But we can at least start to tailor the new plan. And when I say the new plan, Madam Executive Director, you already have the plan. So we have to just drop some things into the plan to expand the plan based on the community conversation. So we have it. And to Councilman Walton's point, yeah, I am concerned, Councilman Walton, about time running out and us losing the level we presently have. So we really need to get on the ball, just as the chair has stated, and have this stuff completed and rolling into the year 24. We should have that plan, and we should identify the DIAs that need the money, because there's several DIAs that never even received any money. Those are the smaller DIAs. So we need to start working on that list ASAP. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Jefferson. Councilman Shirley, I believe you had your hand up. Do you have anything?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. I just wanted to get, excuse me, some understanding of the last comment that Councilman Palka made. So the account is, I'm sorry, the approximately $35 million in the social equity account. And at that, those funds are available to the reinvestment purposes now. And but on July 1st, they're transferred to the fund, and you use the term they would be available to the commission. And did you mean council, or did you mean, if not, then what commission?
Yes, I meant council.
Okay.
And yes, they will roll over to the fund at the end.
At the end, and at that point, so then, but they're available to the council now, subject to the submission of what, more detail around their use. Is that accurate?
Yes, a plan. A plan
okay.
is
A plan. So, okay, so submission of a plan, they're available to us once that's submitted up through up to July 1st. And at that point, they are transferred to a fund, the fund, from the account to the fund. And at that point, they are of the fund, they are available to whom at that, once it goes into the fund?
Social Equity Council. Social Equity Council.
Social Equity Council also, okay.
Could I ask a question? Because now I'm very confused.
Councilman Betts, just sorry, I apologize. I know Councilman Walton's had his hand up. Is it okay if I give it to him first and then I'll come back to you?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So I just want some clarity on the report, because it was stated earlier that there was some back and forth with the report. So who gets the final approval of the report? So is the executive director submitting the report and then we're good to go? Or does OPM have the ability to, request changes? So who has the final say so on approval of the report that they are expecting from the executive director?
Councilman Walton, when you say report, are you talking about
the plan? I'm sorry, the plan. The plan.
Okay.
I apologize.
Just want to make sure. Yep.
Yeah, the plan.
I'll let Director Clay address that one.
Actually, I think we have to have, maybe Mark address it. It did not indicate in the response that there was an approval by OPM. So that is a question. So I believe the council would vote on the plan, and that plan would then be submitted to OPM and to the appropriate committees of the legislature. And without any request for edits or feedback or okay, that is already.
So I have a follow. I do apologize. So is that the process, or we're just speculating that that's the process? Because I can see a scenario where someone in the legislature says they don't like that and they send it back to us and we acquiesce to those requests.
So when we originally submitted the plan to the Appropriations Committee, which we were directed to submit our original plan to, the Appropriations Committee told us that they don't do plans, they do budgets. So they did not read the plan. They didn't want the plan. They didn't request the plan. And I believe that's where we would be submitting the updated plan back to Appropriations, because they're the ones who determine where the monies are going.
Is Councilman Pelk, is that your understanding?
Someone repeat that. I can state that I lost track, to be honest. I didn't capture all of that.
He's asking who has veto power over our plan. If we submit a plan and the council votes on the plan, who has veto power over the plan? That's basically the question. Is it the legislature? Is it OPM? Because he's concerned about a delay, that anyone could delay this process, and therefore the time frame, we run out of time and the money is transferred over to the fund. So that's the gist of the question. So who has veto power over the plan? If the executive director submits a plan based on the feedback we received from the messengers and the outreach effort, and it's incorporated in the plan, and we agree on the plan as a council, and we vote on that plan, and we submit that plan to OPM and the legislature or whoever, who has veto power over it? Can we, or what are we waiting for at that point?
I think
I can characterize your question, Mr. Walker.
Yes, that's exactly it, Councilman Jefferson. Thank you.
the statute that was enacted this session says that during the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024, that's fiscal year 2024, monies in the account shall be allocated by the Secretary of OPM for purposes that the Social Equity Council determines in the Social Equity Council sole discretion, further the principles of equity. So there's no, I don't see reference to veto power. I just cited the statute.
Thank you, Councilman Pelker. That helps tremendously, which means no one has veto power. We simply can vote on the plan and move forward.
So that goes
Thank
to
you.
my question to you, Madam Chair. So if we come up with a plan tomorrow, we can access those funds on, let's say, just hypothetically speaking, we can access those funds on Friday if we have a plan tomorrow. That's my question for one. Yes, no?
That's what it sounds like to me, Councilman, through you, Madam Chair. It sounds like to me, it's based on the reading of the statute, that we have sole discretion on how that money is spent. And if we come up with a valid plan that we agree on, once it's approved by the council, after that, we can spend the money.
So I just want to make sure we're clear. So if we come up with a plan tomorrow, we can start spending those funds on Friday. I just want to make sure that that's clear. I want to hear that.
I think what I'm hearing is from, at least from Director Clay, is that she wants to get that clarity in writing.
Correct. And then the other question that I will ask, and I'll ask here, is the plan that we've already submitted, can we work with that plan and edit the plan going forward? So start to draw down, implement that plan. And then after our conversations have happened, because as we said, we know what the issues are. These members of the council know what the issues are. So can we begin to implement the plan that has already been submitted and looked at by the Appropriations Committee, or not looked at, and looked at by OPM, and start moving that plan forward, and then edit it in another 6 months, add things to it, take away from it, because if it's at our discretion, then we should be able to tweak the plan going forward.
Councilman Gordon?
So just for like, I agree with that, but I would love if you could share what the most final version of that plan is with at least this group. So we're just all in agreement with what it is that we're moving forward on. I like kind of sort of remember what it was, and I don't want to stall or delay. So if we all don't take a look at it in a timely manner, that's fine. But I'd love, before we say yes, I'd love to see.
I just want to clarify one thing. I'm sorry to cut you off. I just want to clarify one thing. The only plan that has gone out is the plan we had for the pilot program. So $6 million that we have dispersed and are waiting to hear back on how they're being invested in the communities that we had kind of used as vehicles for disbursement. Last meeting, we talked about this committee working with the outreach committee to come back based on how we saw this initial pilot program going in terms of what the organizations did, how smoothly it went, et cetera, as well as the results of the outreach conversations, to decide and discuss as a committee, do we want to stick to the pilot program and expand that, or do we want to take a different approach? So as far as I am concerned, we have not had that discussion yet. There is no plan for funds beyond the $6 million that we have spent. That is up for discussion. And last meeting, we spoke about wanting to have outreach conversations. We directed Director Clay to make sure that those conversations happen and we have results back in October. We are recognizing now that we're September 20th, so I doubt that's going to happen. but that is the conversation that was had. It's reflected in the minutes. So I just want to clarify that there should be no other plan other than the pilot program plan for the $6 million.
So there was a plan, and then there was a pilot program plan. And that original, let me just finish, the original plan was, I don't remember if the council voted on the plan, but there was a plan that was more extensive than the pilot program. The pilot program focused on youth and reentry only. The first plan focused on community empowerment, community engagement, and several other opportunities. We were going to look at that very first plan and enhance that plan after the community conversation. So there are in fact two plans.
So again, we honed into specific areas. What we decided on is we need those community conversations to say, do we want to expand back out? Do we want to take the approach where we are, providing the funding to organizations that are going to then reinvest those for us, et cetera. So there, as far as I'm concerned, again, for the $36 million that we have right now for this fiscal year to spend, there is no discussed plan on the table. Councilman Jefferson.
Well, I would agree and disagree with you, Madam Chair, because I don't want to get caught up in, I agree we should wait. This is where I agree with you. We have to wait for community conversations to be had. That's important. But we don't have to reinvent the wheel. The executive director is correct in saying we did create two plans. I recall that. But I would like to see what Councilwoman, I think Gordon had asked for, and that's that second plan, that original, the expanded plan, so that we can at least get started on it. So we have some idea. Right, you're correct. Mm-hmm. We don't have an official plan. You're absolutely right about that. But let's see so that when we do have that conversation, Madam Chair, we can at least begin to add to it based on the community conversation. I'm concerned about what Councilman Betts was alluding to, and what Councilman Walton actually stated. This we have a time frame here. We have the clock is ticking, and you have stated that, Madam Chair. So let's get right down to business here. Community conversations have to happen. The messengers have to bring the feedback to us. Madam Executive Director should at least give us an idea of what that expanded plan looked like. That would help me. I don't know about that. I can't speak for anyone else, but that would help me. So that when communication, when the conversation is had, Madam Chair, we are ahead of the game. And I'm not looking at
Councilman Jefferson.
Thank you.
And I just want to clarify and again, Director Clay, please do share out both what we went with and what you had originally proposed, so that folks are aware of what we're talking about when these things come up. My sense on both of those is community conversations could potentially come back and tell us none of the things that we listed in both the original and the second plan are what the community wants to see, right? And so that might need to change drastically, which is why I stand by the need for having those community conversations help guide us. So for next steps, as I don't see any hands up, I have been taking notes down on both the questions that we have that we need clarified in writing. Again, requesting Director Clay and hoping that Chairman Robertson and Councilmember Pelka can help in getting this clarity in writing. But we need clarity on, again, designation of the fund versus the account, what they are for, who has access to each, and how they can be spent. We need clarity on the funds that we have in hand today, the $36 million. And as Councilman Pelka said, we can draw those down so long as we submit a plan to draw those down. Just need that in writing so that we are clear. Third, we need to understand when do funds have to be spent by and what happens if they are not spent. I understand they get moved to a different, to the fund, but again, who has access to that, so on and so forth. Fourth, do we have sole discretion over funding? So based on what the legislation update that Councilman Pelka read, it sounds like that is up to up to us as a social equity council, and we have sole discretion over the spending, but let's just get that confirmed so that we are on the same page as OPM and DECD. And then finally, just again, the same conversation and understanding to be on the same page. Can we approve a plan tomorrow and spend those funds on Friday? Albeit we'll have contracting in between, so that's never going to be the case, but you understand what I mean. So that's what I've captured.
I just wanted some clarity because
Yep, absolutely.
It's not clear. I just need to know which direction we can go in as of now. I'm all about making sure that we're not just talking. Like I'm solution driven. So what are the solutions right now? And what I'm hearing, and I would hope that we expedite making sure that those community conversations are being had like yesterday, because that's the reason why I sit here. When we talk about reinvestment and we talk about the individuals that have been directly impacted by the war on drugs, we need to continue to have those conversations and not months and weeks out of time. We need to have these conversations, like I said, like yesterday. So I would hope that those things are expedited. And if we have to call it the AG's office and tell them how important this is to us, I think we should be doing that.
Thank you, Councilman Betts. That was my second point. I just want to wrap up to have clarity on the questions, though, to OPM. So Director Clay, I don't see any reason why we can't get all those things clarified with the help of Councilman Robertson and Councilman Pelka within the next week. So I expect by next Wednesday, we have some clarity in writing. And if there needs to be a delay for whatever reason, people are out of office, whatever it might be, please let us know. The second piece is, according to Attorney McCravey, that the contract with the AG's office should be signed any moment now. It should be done by the end of this week. If there
By next week, ma'am.
By next week, I would like an email update to the full council that these contracts have been signed and the consultants we have contracted have the ability to move forward. Additionally, once that is done, I would also like an update on when do the consultants expect to have the conversations done, analyzed, and reported to us. Once you have those two pieces, I would like to see from the social equity staff, recognizing that now we have a reinvestment program manager as well, that will be clearly very busy with all the things that we've been talking about. I would like to see a timeline of, we need to make decisions. This is when we're going to start discussing the plan as a council. Maybe that's next month. But again, we can't discuss the plan until we have outreach outreach conversations kind of summed up and brought back to us. So once you have those dates, I would like to see a plan with a timeline on when we need to get things in and done by, and what the process will look like in order for us to go from having an idea to getting funds out into the community. And then we can discuss that plan as a council. Committee first. Did I miss anything that we covered today? Okay, right on time. Any further questions around reinvestment and outreach conversations? Moving on to the next item, agenda item number 7. Anything for the good of the order? Councilman Gaddis, you have been quiet today. This is usually where I
did you
expect
ask me a question?
No, I said anything for the good of the order, and then I realized how quiet you've been, because you usually jump up and say, "I move to adjourn."
Oh no, I'm sorry. But I will move to adjourn if there's no further business.
I think
Yeah,
Kelly
sorry.
Marie
I just have
Alaris
one
would like to
comment.
say something.
Yep, Kelly, I hear you.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I was late to the meeting. I was having some technical issues and I ended up having to call in, but I just wanted to let you know that I've been here and I've been listening in intently. So just wanted to make sure you all knew that I was here today.
Thank you, appreciate it. And for the record, just wanted to be noted that I did see the number join in much earlier in the meeting. So let's make sure we reflect that she was in attendance in the minutes. And with that, Councilman Gaddis, I think I heard a motion.
Yeah, move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And thank you, Councilwoman Knight, for doing such a great job on the reinvestment meeting today. Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a great day. Take care.